I didn't think there would be a knock. Not at midnight. Not when she had red eyes and shaky hands on my doorway. "Can I stay here tonight?" she said quietly. I stood there like an idiot for a second, my hand still on the doorknob. The light in the hallway above us hummed quietly, making her face look pale yellow. She looked like she had just come out of a hurricane since her makeup was smudged and her hair was a mess. The storm had only been on the other side of her wall. "Lauren, what happened?" I finally did it. She shook her head fast, as if she were afraid that if she spoke, everything would come out at once. "Please, Ethan. I just can't go in there right now." I could still hear muted yelling behind her, across the thin wall that divided our apartments. A man's voice, low and aggressive, with words that were hard to make out but had sharp edges. I had been standing in my kitchen for the last 20 minutes, pretending to wash dishes I had already done and trying not to pry, but I failed entirely. I moved away from the door. "Yes, sure, of course. Come in." She snuck past me, hugging herself like she was cold, even though the heat in my house was too high. I closed the door, and the battle next door got quieter but didn't stop. It was like a terrible radio station that couldn't find the right frequency. Lauren stood in the middle of my small living room, appearing small in her big gray sweater and leggings. She looked at the floor and took deep breaths to calm down. Over the past year, I had seen her in the hallways 100 times, smiling, laughing, carrying groceries, and conversing on the phone. I had never seen her like this before. "Would you like some water?" I asked because I didn't know what else to say. I went into the kitchen because she nodded. I thought about the last hour as I took a glass out of the cabinet. The initial thud hit the wall, the sound of a door slamming, the loud increase of voices. Mark, her boyfriend, was pacing and cursing. Lauren's voice was softer as she tried to calm things down. Another thump. I remained there, transfixed, not knowing if I should call someone, knock, or do anything. Then there was quiet. Then there was a knock. I poured the glass, and my heart raced too fast for me to just give someone water. I had liked Lauren since the day she moved into the apartment next door. That first week, she knocked on my door with a tray of cookies and a roll of duct tape and laughed about a busted cabinet. I had fallen a little bit in love right there in the hallway of our old Portland building. Then, a few months later, Mark came. I went back to the living room and gave her the glass. Her fingertips brushed mine, and I tried to ignore the little spark that went up my arm. "Thanks," she murmured as she took a sip. It seemed like she had been crying or yelling since her voice was harsh. Maybe both. I sat down on the couch's edge to give her room. "Do you want to tell me what happened?" She swallowed and peered at the front door, as if she were terrified it would open at any moment. "He lost it again," she added in a low voice. "Because of anything dumb. It's always something dumb." "Did he hit you?" I asked before I could stop myself. Her eyes were large and gleaming as they met mine. "No, not this time. Just..." She waved her hand vaguely in the direction of the wall, where another dull thud echoed through the plaster. "He threw my phone. He hit the wall with his fist. He stated a few things. My jaw got stiff. He says things all the time." She let forth a small, humorless laugh. "Yes, he does that well. I had heard too much. Fights at night. Slamming doors. He said he was sorry the next day in the hall, holding flowers." "It's okay, it's fine," she said in a gentle, sleepy voice, even when it was clear that everything was not okay. Through the wall, there was another faint rising in his voice. Lauren flinched and tightened her grip on the glass. I said, "You're safe here," and the words came out stronger than I meant. "He's not coming in." She looked at me and studied my face as if she were trying to figure out how much she could believe that promise. She wondered, what if he knocks on the door? I don't answer then. I responded. Or I do. And I tell him you're not here. Or I call the police. Anything you need. Her shoulders lowered a little, and some of the stress left her body. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I shouldn't have brought you into this. I didn't know where else to go." I whispered softly. "You live 10 feet away. Coming here makes sense." She smiled, but it was a weak, broken smile that I was used to. "You always say the right thing, don't you?" I didn't think I did. She wouldn't still be going back to a guy who made her knock on my door in the middle of the night if I always said the correct thing. "So," I replied, attempting to change the mood a little. "Do you want to sit? Do you want to watch something? Talk. I have a bad couch and Netflix. It's not a lot, but it's yours tonight." She thought about it for a moment, then sat down on the couch's far end, pulled her knees up, and put her feet under her. She put the glass on the coffee table and then hugged a throw pillow to her chest. She said slowly, looking at the TV screen even though it was off, "Do you ever feel like you're stuck in a movie you didn't audition for?" "Almost every day," I said. "But my neighbors aren't usually this crazy." She made a quiet snort. "Sorry for the noise." I said, "It's okay. I've heard worse." She glanced at me swiftly. "Have you heard us before?" There it was. The inquiry she probably already knew the answer to. "Yeah," I said. "Not everything, but enough." Her cheeks turned red, and her eyes showed a mix of shame and rage and hurt. "God, that's very embarrassing." I said, "Hey, the only person who should be ashamed is him, not you." For a second, she looked into my eyes. There was something unspoken between us, maybe an understanding or a query that neither of us wanted to utter out loud. After that, she glanced away again. "I don't know why I stay," she remarked in a hushed voice. "I tell myself it's because the lease isn't up yet, or because it costs a lot to move, or because when he's good, he's really good. But I don't know. I sometimes think I stay because it's simpler than saying I messed up big time." I swallowed hard. I had the same feeling when I was awake at night and heard them arguing through the wall, wondering why a person like her would be with a person like him. I was wondering if I should say something. I was wondering if she would hate me if I did. I said, "You're not stuck, even if it seems like it." She said, "Tell that to my bank account." I grinned a bit. "Okay, that's fair. But nonetheless, you are not the only one. I'm right here." Her eyes became softer. "Why do you care so much, Ethan?" The question impacted me harder than it should have. Why did I care? Because I was a good person? Because no one should be afraid in their own home? Or because I had discreetly learned how she laughed and how she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was nervous? "All neighbors care," I responded with a smile. "It's like a rule that everyone knows about." She raised an eyebrow. "Pretty sure that's not how it works." "Okay," I said with a shrug. "Maybe I'm just strange." This time she really smiled, even though it was little. "You're not strange." There was another stillness between us, but it felt different this time. Not as heavy. There was still a faint murmur coming from next door, like the sound of pacing and the occasional cursing. Lauren's eyes turned to the wall. She started with, "Can I?" and then paused. "Can you what?" She bit her lower lip and then looked at me. "Can I stay here tonight? I'll sit on the couch. I don't want to go back in there till he's gone, passed out, or something else." My heart raced in my chest. Not for the same reason most guys would be delighted about having a girl stay over, but because I knew what it meant for her to ask, to have faith in me. "Yeah," I answered gently. "Of course. You may really have my bed. The couch is okay with me." She shook her head swiftly. "No, no way. I'm not throwing you out of your own bed." I said, "It's not up for debate. You need to sleep more than I do." She looked at me for a long time, as if she were trying to figure out if I was real. Then she nodded her head slowly. "Okay," she said in a low voice. "Thanks." I could feel my own life changing under my feet as I got up to get an additional blanket from my bedroom. This wasn't just a neighbor coming over to stay the night. This was going too far. A door opening to something I had imagined 100 times, but never actually dreamed would happen. I had no idea how much things were going to alter. I stood in my bedroom for a second with the blanket in my hands, trying to calm down. It felt like the walls of my own room were closing in on me, like they knew something big was going on in the living room. I also got an extra cushion and went back outside. Lauren was still on the couch, her fingers moving along the edge of the throw pillow in her lap. When she spotted me, her eyes went up. I put the blanket over the arm of the couch and added, "So, there's just one house rule you need to know." She blinked. "You have rules for your house?" "Yes," I responded, trying to seem serious. "If you're a guest, you don't have to worry about being a burden." She looked at me for half a beat, then a small smile pulled at her lips. "That's a very clear rule." "It's in the lease," I said. "Page 4. Small print." She shook her head and let out a gentle laugh. She sounded like herself for the first time all night. The music made something in my chest feel better. I pointed down the hall. "My room is on the left. The bathroom is across from it. If you like, I can get you something more comfy to sleep in. I have a ton of vintage t-shirts." She thought about it. "I don't. Ethan, I'm not sure if I should take your bed. It feels strange." I wondered, what feels stranger, sleeping in a safe, quiet room, or lying awake next door listening to your boyfriend punch walls? I didn't mean for the word boyfriend to sound so harsh. She saw it. There was a gloom in her eyes, yet they softened. She said gently, "He wasn't always like that. Do you know that?" I shrugged. "I trust you. But this is the only version of him I've ever known." She gazed at her hands. "Yes, that's fair." The sounds from the apartment next door had stopped. Mark had either departed or finally passed out. But the tension was palpable and heavy between us. "Come on," I replied softly. "At least lie down. After you've slept, you may judge how strange it is." I walked her down the corridor, and I felt weirdly conscious of every step. When she stood in the doorway, my bedroom looked different, as if I were viewing everything through her eyes. The bed was unmade, the laptop was on the dresser, and there was a laundry basket in the corner that I instantly wished I had dealt with earlier. Above the headboard was a framed poster of the Portland skyline. "Very bachelor," she remarked gently as she took it all in. I remarked, "That poster is classy. Shows I'm cultured." She grinned a little. "You grew up here?" "Close by," I said. "A small town near Portland." "You?" "Ohio," she said. "Moved here for work. Stayed for bad choices." I knew she was talking about Mark, but she didn't speak his name. I went to the dresser and took out a simple navy blue shirt. "Even though this might be too big for you, I promise it's clean." She grasped it, and her fingertips brushed mine again. That spark was back, and it was stronger this time. I could tell she felt it too since her breath stopped for a second. "Thanks," she murmured in a low voice. I assured her, "I'll be on the couch. Just wake me up if you need something. Even if it's 3 in the morning and you want pancakes." "Do you know how to make pancakes?" she inquired. I answered, "Not at all. But I make great cereal. Top level." She laughed again, and this time it sounded almost natural. "Good night, Ethan." "Good night, Lauren." I backed out of the room and almost closed the door, leaving it open just a crack. I didn't want her to feel like she was stuck. I stood there for a second, looking at the sliver of light between the door and the frame and listening to her move around. I could hear her opening drawers, the delicate rustle of cloth, and the bed springs groaning as she sat down. I took a big breath and headed back to the living room. All of a sudden, the couch didn't seem as comfy as it did 10 minutes ago. But I got an additional blanket from the closet, lay down on the cushions, and looked up at the ceiling. Everything was quiet now, even through the wall. No shouting, no thuds, just quiet. The kind of silence that makes you wonder what's on the other side. I should have been sleepy. I had to be at work by 8, and it was almost 1 in the morning. But I couldn't stop thinking. It kept playing back the knock on my door, the look in her eyes, and how she had asked if she may remain. She asked, "Why do you care so much?" Why did I? After a while, when the building was completely calm, I heard my bedroom door rattle softly. Footsteps silently padded down the hall. I turned my head and saw Lauren standing there in the faint light from the street lamps outside. She was wearing my big t-shirt, which came down almost to her knees. I whispered gently, "Hey," as I sat up. "Are you okay?" She wrapped her arms about herself. "Can I sit out here for a minute?" "Of course." I moved so she could have some room. Just as earlier, she sat on the other end of the couch and tucked her legs under her. For a short while, we both didn't say anything. "I thought I could sleep," she finally murmured, looking at her hands. But I kept hearing him every time I closed my eyes. And then I kept hearing my own voice. When it's clear that it's not fine, saying it's fine over and over again. I leaned back and put my head on the cushion. "You've been dealing with this by yourself for a while, haven't you?" She took a deep breath. "Yes." I whispered softly, "Why?" She stared at me, astonished that I had asked such a direct question. She then let out a sigh. "Because if I tell people, they'll tell me to go. And if I don't leave, I'm the dumb one who stayed. And I don't want to be that girl, you know?" I slowly nodded. "Yeah, I understand. People usually advise, just leave if he talks to you like that or scares you. Like it's that easy. You just put your plants and your favorite mug in a bag and leave." I said, "It's not that easy." "I know." She looked closely at my face. "Do you? Have you ever been in a situation like that?" I thought about it. Not romantic. But my dad was angry. When I was a kid, he'd bang doors, scream, hit the walls. The next day, though, he would act if nothing had happened. Get pizza to go? Make fun of things. Her eyes got softer. I had no idea. "I don't exactly lead with it," I said in a joking tone. "But yes, my mom stayed for a long time. People wanted to know why. Thought about her. but they weren't the ones who had to figure out where to go with a child and a lot of bills. Lauren's eyes fell to the couch cushion that was between us. She leaned out and touched the seam with her fingers. I keep hoping things will get better, that he's just under a lot of stress, that once he gets the job, or we move to a bigger place, or, I don't know, he'll settle down when something happens. But he doesn't, I responded quietly. Her eyes were blurry, and she shook her head. No, he just gets better at saying sorry. The room became quiet again. I could hear the refrigerator's soft hum and the sound of a car passing by outside. I sometimes get scared of him, she said in a voice that was just above a whisper. And I'm scared of what it says about me that I still go back. I moved in a little bit. I said, it says you're human. Not broken. Not weak. Just human. Our eyes met, and something in them broke. She blinked, and a tear ran down her face. I quickly reached across the space between us and softly brushed it away with my thumb before I could think too much about it. She didn't let go. I added softly. You shouldn't have to be scared in your own home. You deserve more than that. The air between us was charged with something fragile and strong. I could feel how close we were and how easy it would be to close the rest of the space. But I stayed still. I didn't want to be another guy who took advantage of her while she was weak. She stared at me like she was trying to figure something out. Why didn't I knock on anyone else's door? She said in a low voice. Why yours? My chest felt tight. Why do you think? She took a hesitant breath. Because you constantly look at me like I'm not insane. Mark is still Mark, even while he's being Mark. Even when I laugh it off in the hallway afterward. You don't think I'm pathetic. I told him, you're not pathetic. You're one of the strongest people I know. She smiled, but it was sad. You don't even know me that well. Then let me. I blurted before I could stop myself. Her eyes got a little bigger. There it was, the line I had crossed and couldn't go back over. I had just opened a door that I had kept closed for a year. Ethan, she began, saying my name softly. My heart raced. I hastily added, I'm not saying you owe me anything. I'm not telling you to leave him because I have feelings or anything. I care. A lot. And not only because you live next door. She gazed down at our hands. We didn't plan to, but our fingers ended up lying close together, almost touching, on the cushion between us. She moved her hand closer and closer, as if she were testing something, until her pinky touched mine. I think I always knew that, she said softly. That you cared more than you said. I swallowed. Is that okay? She nodded, and her eyes sparkled. Yes, it's fine. A door slammed shut somewhere in the building. We both stopped and listened. Footsteps echoed down the hall, and then stopped. Mark wasn't the one, but the noise made us think of him next door, like a shadow on the wall. Lauren took a big breath. Could you do something for me? She said. Anything, I said. Tomorrow, she added, looking me in the eye. Can you help me figure out what getting out of this really means? Not simply stating, I should go, but really planning it? Hope rose in my chest so quickly that it startled me. Yeah, I answered, and my voice was steady even though everything inside me wasn't. Sure, I can do that. She let out a slow sigh, as if she had been holding it in for months. Then she moved closer and rested her head on my shoulder. Then maybe, she said, I can really sleep tonight. I stayed very still because I was concerned that if I moved too much, I might ruin the moment. My arm automatically wrapped around her shoulders, and she relaxed against me as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I realized something as her breathing slowly got back to normal and the weight of her head grew heavier against me. This wasn't just a horrible night. This was the first step toward the end of her former life. And, whether I was ready or not, it was the start of something utterly new between us. I woke up to the sound of my neck snapping. For a moment, I had no idea where I was. My back hurt, my arm was numb, and there was a peculiar weight on my chest. Then I looked down and recalled. Lauren was still sleeping on the couch next to me. At some point during the night, she moved and put her head on my chest. One hand was resting softly on my shirt, as if she were holding on to me even in her dreams. Soft gray morning light came in through the slats and filled the living area. The two of us seemed little and hazy on my TV screen. The clock on the wall said it was 7:12 a.m. I lay there, not moving, and listened to her calm, steady breathing. The building was silent for once. No shouting, no smashing doors. The heater was making a low noise, and the city was waking up in the distance. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to ruin the tranquility we had worked so hard to achieve in the middle of the night. But my arm was utterly numb and my phone was buzzing. On the coffee table, Lauren woke up when I moved a little to get it. Her fingers moved against my chest and her lashes fluttered. I said, "Morning." She stared up at me, seeming perplexed, and then she remembered where she was. Her eyes fell to my shirt, where her hand was still lying. She pulled it back like she had touched something scorching. She said, "Oh my God," and sat up immediately. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. I must have just fallen asleep." "You did," I responded as I gently pushed myself up. "My back hurt. Pretty hard, actually. You snore a bit." Her mouth dropped open. "Do I?" I smiled. "Just a little bit. It's a little cute." She picked up a throw pillow and hit me softly with it. "You are lying." "I guess," I said. "I was half asleep." She laughed, then winced and rubbed the side of her neck. "Ouch. Okay, your couch is really bad now." "I told you to take the bed," I said. She turned to look down the hall. "Did I end up in your bed at all?" I said no swiftly, probably too quickly. "You came out here after a while." "Could not sleep." She remembered, and her expression softened. "Okay. The conversation. The conversation. About Mark. About going. About plans." In the bright morning light, it suddenly felt heavier. My phone rang again. I picked it up off the table. 3 messages from work. One was from my boss, who wanted to know whether I could come in early for a meeting. For a second, I didn't pay attention to them. "Do you have to go?" she asked softly, looking at my face. "I should," I said. "But I don't have to be there right now. We have time." She brought her knees up to her chest and put her arms over them. She said, "I can't go back in there like everything is fine. I can't just make coffee and act like last night didn't happen." I said, "You're not going to. Remember we said we'd come up with a plan?" She nodded and bit her bottom lip. "Okay," I responded, attempting to seem more sure of myself than I was. "Let's take it one step at a time. First question. If you wanted to move out, could you pay for an apartment on your own?" She let out a breath that had no humor in it. "Not in this city. Not at this time. Part of the reason I moved in with him was because rent is so high. That, plus the fact that I thought we were in love and making a life together and all that great things." "Family," I said. "Is there someone you could stay with for a while? Just for a month or two?" She answered, "My parents are in Ohio. We're not really close right now. They didn't like Mark at all. When I told them I was moving in with him, we had a big fight. You don't know this guy very well, Lauren." They were right. "How about friends?" I asked. "Coworkers." She shrugged. "I have buddies, but most of them live in small studio apartments or share a room with someone else. I don't want to be the girl who turns up with a bag and a sad story." I said, "You'd be the girl who needed help." "That's not the same." She stared at me. "You really think it's that easy?" "No," I answered. "I think it's dangerous, messy, and hard to understand. But I also think that if you contacted them and said, 'I need to get out,' at least one person would answer, 'When can I pick you up?'" She gazed at her hands. "Maybe." I leaned forward with my elbows on my knees. "Okay, here's my second question. What's yours in that apartment?" She made a face. "What do you mean?" "Well, what did you pay for? TV? Couch? Dishes? What can you leave with without creating a fight?" She thought about it. "My bed. My chest of drawers. A lot of the kitchen things. Half of the couch. Some of the decorations. The outfits I wear. My computer. Almost everything that isn't a game console or a big speaker." "Okay," I responded as I nodded. "And what's in your name? The rent? The utilities?" Her face dropped a little. "Both of our names are on the lease. My name appears on the power bill. He has Wi-Fi in his." I said, "That's actually something. That means he can't just kick you out without talking to the landlord. And if he attempts to tamper with you, you may turn off the electricity." I stopped. "Not that I'm telling you to start a utility war." "Still," she smiled a little. "You'd be a scary ex." "I'd be ready," I responded. "Very different." She drew the blanket up around her shoulders. "What do we do now? Make a spreadsheet?" I said, "Not the worst idea. But let's start with something smaller. Today, what do you need right now?" Her eyes wandered to the wall that separated our apartments, as if she could see right through it. "Work clothes. My bag. My computer. The charger for my phone. My keys." "Okay," I said. "We can take care of that." Her shoulders got tight. "What if he is in there? What if he begins?" "Okay, I'm with you," I said. And if he gets angry, we leave. Not a word. If we need to, we can call the police. She swallowed heavily. He's not going to hurt me. She stated it as if she wanted to believe it. But there was a slight shake in her voice that made me think she wasn't sure. Let's not give him a chance to prove either of us wrong, I said. She slowly nodded. We both sat there and listened. The wall didn't make any noise. There was no TV, music, or footsteps. There was no way to know if he was asleep, gone, or just sitting there in the dark, angry. My phone rang again. I had a quick look at it. My boss sent me another mail. Lauren said softly, I need to text my boss, and pulled her knees closer. She's going to think I'm flaky if I'm late again. Do you want to tell her what's going on? I asked. She shook her head swiftly. Not yet. I don't know how. Sorry I'm late. My boyfriend's anger problems kept me up all night. Doesn't sound good in a business email. I said fair. Okay. So we moved quickly. Out and in. She took a long breath and glanced at me. Will you come with me? Into the flat? Yes, I answered. I'm not going to let you go in there by yourself. For a moment, she just looked at me, as if she were witnessing something new. Then she said yes. Okay, she said softly. Let's do it. We both got up. My legs hurt because I slept on the couch with my legs half twisted. She smoothed the front of my big t-shirt, which made her feel self-conscious all of a sudden. I'm going to change back into my clothes, she added. Take your time, I told them. I'll wait. She went down the hall to my room and then vanished. I brushed a hand through my hair to make myself look less like I had just fought a bear in my sleep. My heart was racing. Even though it was hers, it seemed like we were going to break into a house. When she got back, she was wearing the same sweater and leggings she had worn the night before, and her hair was in a sloppy ponytail. She seemed exhausted, but more focused. Are you ready? I asked. She responded honestly, no. But let's go anyway. We went out into the hallway together. There was a stench of stale coffee and burnt toast throughout the building. The light above us flickered. It was only a few steps from my apartment door to hers, but it felt like we were walking toward the edge of a cliff. Lauren stopped with her key in the lock and looked at me. I nodded. I'm right here. She cautiously twisted the key and pushed the door open. The living room was a disaster. There was a lamp that had fallen over, a cushion on the floor, and one of her framed prints that was leaning to the side. It felt like the air was thick and heavy with the stress from last night. She slowly called out, Mark, are you here? No answer. We went inside. I looked right at the wall where I knew he had punched. There it was, a new dent and a little fracture in the drywall. My jaw tightened. Let's hurry, I said. She nodded and went to the bedroom. I followed, maintaining a few steps behind, and tried not to feel like I was invading their space. It was remarkable how clean her room was. The bed was made, the clothes were in the hamper, and a little plant on the windowsill was still alive. Lauren took a duffel bag out of the closet and began to fill it with clothing including pants, sweatshirts, undergarments, and a pair of flats. I went to her desk, unplugged her laptop and charger, and neatly wrapped the cords. My heart wouldn't stop racing. I thought he was going to walk in every time the building creaked. Ethan, she remarked in a low voice. I turned around. She had a little picture in a frame. It was a picture of her and Mark at a bar, both of them smiling at the camera. The photo showed her actual smile. His looked crisp. She put the picture face down on the dresser. Leave it, I murmured softly. She nodded. The front door banged just as we were about to finish. We both stopped. Lauren. Mark's voice came from the living room, harsh and too loud for the quiet of the morning. Lauren, what the hell were you doing last night? I could hear my heart beating in my ears. Lauren's eyes got big. For a moment, it appeared like she would pass out. She had the duffel bag half zipped in her hand. Stay here, I said quietly. She held my wrist. Ethan, don't. It's okay, I said softly. I'm not trying to start a quarrel. Just don't let him see that you're scared. You can be here. She let go of her grip, but not all the way. I left the bedroom and went into the hallway. Mark was in the living room with his keys hanging from his fingers. His hair was a mess, and he had heavy circles under his eyes. He had on the same crumpled and filthy t-shirt as the night before. He first spotted me when he looked up. He said, "What the hell are you doing in my apartment?" I said, "Your name isn't the only one on the lease," and I kept my voice steady. "And I'm just helping Lauren get some things." His eyes got smaller. "Where is she?" "Right here," she replied behind me. I moved over a little so she could see me. She strolled toward me with a duffel bag over her shoulder and her chin pushed up higher than I had ever seen it. He looked at her and remarked, "You didn't come back last night." I waited. "I phoned you," she said. My phone was off. He stared at her like that response didn't work for him. "So you just go away? You just run to your neighbor's house like some? Be careful," I warned softly. He turned his head quickly toward me, and rage flashed in his eyes. "This isn't your business, man." I answered, "It does. You're yelling at her in front of me. That worries me." Lauren stood in between us a little. "Mark, halt. Please. Just listen for a second." He laughed, but it wasn't funny. "Oh, I'm paying attention." I walk in, and my girlfriend is packing a bag with the guy who's been gazing at her in the corridor for a year. "You think I don't see, man? You think I haven't seen you?" I felt heat creeping up my neck, but I didn't say anything. Lauren responded, "It's not about him," her voice cracking but firm. "It's about you. Last night. And every night before that." Mark laughed. "So I'm the evil guy now? Because I got angry once." "It's not once," she remarked. "It's every time you don't get what you want. When something goes wrong at work, when the traffic is bad or the game doesn't go your way. You shout. You bang on doors. You hit walls." She pointed to the new fracture in the drywall. "Mark, you scare me." He looked at her with a tense jaw. "You're being overdramatic." "No," she answered in a hushed voice. "I'm not for the first time in a long time." It felt like the room was holding its breath. He jerked his chin toward me and stated, "I'm not doing this with an audience." "Tell him to go." "I told him to come," she said. "I wanted someone to be with me." Something horrible flashed across his face. "So what? Are you going to go away with him? Is that it? Do you believe he's better? Do you believe he won't be angry with you? You think he's the best?" She said again, "This isn't about him. This is about me making the choice to stop living this way." He said, "You're not going anywhere. You signed a lease. You can't just leave because your feelings were harmed." My fists were tight at my sides. I responded gently, "Actually, she can. A lease is a piece of paper. Safety is more important than paper." He stared at me. "I swear to God, if you don't stop talking, Mark," Lauren said forcefully, catching both of us off guard. "Don't talk to him that way." He turned back to her with wide eyes. "Why are you talking to me like this?" "Because I decided I'm not going to be afraid of my boyfriend anymore," she remarked. Her fingers shook where it held the strap of her purse, but her voice stayed firm. I had never been so proud of somebody before. He said, "You're overreacting." We got into a brawl. Couples argue. That's normal. "You threw my phone," she said. "You hit the wall next to my head." He opened his mouth, then shut it again. "I never touched you." "Not yet," she responded. "And I'm not going to wait for yet. I don't want to know what that looks like." He moved closer. I moved too, without thinking, putting myself a little more between them. Not too blatant, but enough that he'd have to get by me first if he did anything. His eyes moved quickly between us, and his nostrils flared. He asked Lauren, "What now? You pack a bag, go cry to your parents, friends, or neighbor, and then what? Am I supposed to be the bad guy in everyone's story?" "You don't have to worry about my story anymore," she remarked. "All you need to do is take care of yourself." His laugh was harsh. He turned his head toward me and said, "You really think he's going to fix your life? You think he's a hero? He just happened to be in the right place at the right time when you had a tantrum next to his door." Lauren responded, "I don't think he's a hero. I believe he heard me when I was scared. And that's more than you've done in a while." The words hung in the air like a slap. For a second, I thought Mark was going to blow out. He had his fists clenched at his sides, and his knuckles were white. Then something in the way he looked changed. He immediately seemed smaller and younger, like a youngster who had just been informed he wasn't exceptional anymore. He asked in a low voice, "Are you really doing this? Are you really going?" She swallowed and her eyes shone. "Yes," she said. "I am." He said, "You're going to wish you hadn't. You'll see that this was just a stupid overreaction and you threw away everything." "Maybe," she said, "but I'd rather feel bad about leaving than about staying." I was surprised as I observed her. This was the same girl who had been saying sorry through the wall for months and laughing off his anger in the corridor. Now she was in front of him, picking herself. Mark looked at her for a long time. Then he shook his head as if he couldn't believe it. "Fine," he responded in a hushed voice. "Go. Take off with your little rescuer. When he grows weary of you, don't come back." I said, "Don't talk about her like that," before I could stop myself. He stepped toward me, and his face was distorted. For a second, I thought he was going to hit me. My muscles got tight. Then he said, "You don't even know her," and turned away, grabbing his car keys off the counter with more force than he needed to. Lauren jumped at the sound. She whispered softly, "You can keep the couch. I'm not going to fight you over furniture." He didn't say anything. He pulled the door open so forcefully that it smacked the wall, and then he stormed out, letting it crash behind him. The apartment was quiet. In the calm, my ears ringing. I realized I had been holding my breath. I let it out slowly. Lauren stood there and stared at the door. Her shoulders were shaking. I said softly, "Hey, are you okay?" She laughed and cried at the same time. "No, not really." She put her hands over her face and dropped the bag. I walked across the room and put my hand on her shoulder as carefully as I could. She leaned on me as if she had been wanting to do it for years. "I can't believe I really did that," she remarked to me. I feared I would freeze. Or give up. "Say you're sorry. I apologize all the time." I said, "You didn't. You were amazing." She said, "You hurt him. He thinks I'm overdoing it." "What if I am?" "What if?" I answered firmly, "You're not. You are not insane. You aren't being theatrical. You're not weak. You did something that was very, very hard. And you don't have to know everything now. You only needed to be sure enough to leave." Her shoulders shook again, but this time I could tell it was because she was scared and relieved. "I don't know where I'm going to end up," she said softly. I told him, "One step at a time. Step 1 right now is to get your things to my apartment. Step 2 is to call someone you trust. Your mom, a buddy, or anyone else. We get coffee at step 3. A lot of coffee." She laughed in a moist way. "Your step's in you." "Hey, I'm a planner," I said. "It's the only good thing about me." She pulled back just enough to see me. There was something new in her red eyes. Something like a chance. She remarked, "It's not the only good thing about you." We went back and forth between our apartments twice. Most of it was simply clothes and tiny stuff, like her laptop, a few of her favorite novels, and a little potted plant she wouldn't leave behind. Every time we walked by Mark's door, we both got uncomfortable, but it stayed shut. When we were done, my apartment looked like a tornado had hit it, with cardboard boxes and bags everywhere. Lauren stood in the middle of my living room, holding her plant close to her chest. "I feel like I just moved in," she remarked. "Hey, that's great news," I said. "Rent for the first month is free." She gave me a look. "You're not serious." I shrugged. "We'll work something out later. You are my guest right now. People that stay with you don't have to pay rent. It's in the rules of the house." She smiled, even though she was tired. "You are really strange." "I like uniquely generous better," I said. She put the plant on the ledge and took a deep breath. She said, "I should call my mom. She's going to lose it." In a good manner. And in a "I told you so" way. "I'll make coffee," I said. "Give you some space." I heard her quiet voice from the other room while the coffee machine sputtered to life. At first, it was unsteady, but it got steadier as she spoke. I heard bits of "I'm okay, I swear." "Yes," with a neighbor. "No, he's polite." "Mom, please don't book a flight yet." I smiled at my mug. It was hard to remember what happened in the next few weeks. I slept on the couch, and Lauren slept in my room. We got into a routine. We would have coffee together in the morning, check in with each other during the day, and communicate late at night when the building was quiet. She found a temporary place with a friend on the other side of town, but she chose to wait to sign anything until her lease was completely worked out. Mark sent her a couple texts. Sorry. Anger. Long paragraphs. She showed me some of them and removed some of them before she was done reading. "I want to answer all the time," she said one night. "Just to be clear. Or show that I'm not the bad guy he's made me out to be." "You don't have to do that for him," I said. "I know," she said, "but I forget sometimes." We were back on my couch, just like the first night, except this time there was no yelling over the wall. The metropolis outside was just a gentle hum. I told them, "You're doing great. You know that, right?" She stared at me, and her face softened. "I wouldn't be if it weren't for you." I said, "I just opened a door. You went through it." She thought about it for a moment, then moved a little closer. Our knees touched. That old spark came back between us, something I knew well, but it made me gasp. She said, "Can I ask you something?" "Yes." She asked, "When you said that night, 'Let me know you,' did you mean as a friend? Or something else?" My heart skipped a beat. I didn't want to avoid this time. I responded, "Both. I want to be your friend." and I would be lying if I claimed I didn't want more. For a long time. She looked at her hands, then back up at me. Is it wrong that I want that too? So soon? I responded softly, no. It would only be messed up if one of us acted like this wasn't hard. And if I ever made you feel like you were just switching guys, instead of putting yourself first. Her eyes sparkled. You're not like him. I am still a person, I said. I'll still screw up sometimes. But I won't yell at you. I won't punch walls. I won't make you terrified to knock on your own home door. She scrutinized my face for a long second. Then she took my hand, lacing her fingers through mine. I don't want to rush anything, she replied. I don't want you to be some rebound. I don't want this to be about fleeing him. I want it to be about choosing you. Choosing us. When I'm ready. I held her hand tightly. I said, then we go slowly. As slow as you need. I'm not going anywhere. She leaned in just a bit, her shoulder brushing mine. Can I tell you a secret? She requested. Always. That night, she added, when I knocked on your door, it wasn't the first time I thought about it. I'd stood there in the corridor before, peering at your door, wondering if you'd think I was insane. I didn't do it. Until I heard my own voice in my thoughts say, you're not safe. I swallowed. I'm really glad you listened to that voice. She smiled softly. Me too. She shifted closer again, and this time, when she looked up at me, the question in her eyes was clear. I moved slowly, giving her time to pull back. She didn't. Our lips met in a gentle, careful kiss. No fireworks. No movie soundtrack. Just warmth and the quiet, powerful feeling of something real beginning. When we pulled back, she rested her forehead against mine. Is this okay? She whispered. It's more than okay, I said. But if at any point it isn't, you tell me. And we adjust. Deal. She nodded, breathing me in. Deal. Outside, somewhere down the street, a car horn honked. A dog barked. Life kept going. Inside my tiny apartment in Portland, though, everything felt different. She had knocked on my door that night because she was scared. Now, she stayed because she wasn't. And for the first time in a long time, in a city that could be loud and harsh and overwhelming, we were building something quiet and safe and stubbornly hopeful, one small, careful step at a time.
If this story stays with your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends.